until we see a project. I was talking to Joe, how we put in the requirement that that building has to be built first.
That'd be a lot less.
That's part of the condition, you want to build that building.
Yeah.
We have options. Yes, we do.
Refer back to it later.
I do, and that's my problem.
Please rise, join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Meeting of the Wahoo City Council, Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, 7 o'clock p.m. Open Meeting Act is posted on the wall, otherwise there's brochures up at City Hall if you're interested in more detail. Call meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Stuart Craigie.
Here.
Karen Booth.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Here.
Chris Rappel.
Here.
Ryan Ideas.
Here.
Carl Wolford.
Okay, thank you. We do have a proclamation tonight. I won't read the entire, it's appropriate. It's Lead Poisoning Prevention Week, October 23rd through the 29th. It's introduced basically by Wahoo Utilities, telling everybody about the risks of the private water systems and having lead in it. If anybody wants to read it more, we can. Otherwise, I would enter this into the records and proclaim that this week is Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. Okay, you want to speak to it?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to come up here and talk to this proclamation and what's driving it here at Wahoo Utilities. In accordance with the EPA's lead and copper rule revisions that they're doing, Wahoo Utilities is attempting to get a lead service line inventory completed. It's due by October of 2024, but we want to get out ahead of it. And so we're asking the public, you'll be seeing flyers coming into from your utility bills on our social media page and our website. There'll be a lot of information about conducting this inventory. And in honor of Lead Poisoning Week, we wanted to roll out this process with our partners, JEO. They've done a great job of helping us get this information out to the public. There'll be surveys we're asking customers to complete and do on their homes. There'll be information on our website on how to determine what kind of pipe comes into your basement. And there's also going to be a helpful video that will be coming out that was created by Wahoo Utilities. Our water wastewater supervisor, Aaron Gustin, did a great job explaining how someone could determine what type of pipe there is. And if you are unaware or unable to figure it out, we will have a useful tool for you to set up an appointment with a Department of Utilities employee to come and do that survey or see what kind of pipe it is, so we can get this inventory completed of all of our water lines that enter into the basements. And again, the pipe entering into a basement is privately owned, but it's the best point we have to access the type of pipe it is. And we're just gonna make some assumptions on that type of material is the same type of material that goes all the way to the water main. So the ultimate goal of this is public safety, and we want to identify and eventually do further testing and eliminate lead service lines over the upcoming years. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Ask the audience if anybody has any comments on any subject that's not listed on our agenda. Any topic or subject that you want to speak to, now is the time. Seeing none, we'll move forward. We have a department head report tonight, quarterly report. This is for August. Chief, you want to speak to it?
Well, just maybe update on a few other things we got going on. Just so you know, I did put in for a kind of a last minute deal. A grant came up for small town agencies, equipment that they might need. Somebody notified me of it. We did submit one. We don't know if we got it for, just some, updating our cruiser cameras, to match our new body cameras. But we haven't heard back from that yet. As far as the police Tahoe or the police vehicle in the budget for the coming year, Sid Dillon does have, opportunity to get some on a state bid. They're not built yet, so it's a ways out yet before we have an exact number, but looks like the price of that's gonna be, around $48,000. Just so you know, just remind you that the vehicles that we have, I think they have 160,000, 138,000, 128,000, and our newest vehicle, the K9 Cruiser, has 105,000 miles. So we have high mileage on all our vehicles. It'd be nice to, when we replace the oldest one, to have one that I'm trying to use them all. I know sometimes one would sit around for a while, not get used, but we're trying to keep those miles down on them, so they try and get as much life as we can out of them. You guys might have heard that Officer Station Nelson resigned, our K9 handler. The K9 program, just so you know, when I came on here, I brought a K9 too. It was a K9 that's been certified for about 3 years now. It was donated to me when I was the chief of police in Ashland. I went through the K9 school and was the handler there. When our K9 officer was hired, but we had one K9 officer end up resigning. Then we had another K9 officer get hired by Omaha, and then the K9 was adopted to me. So I ran that K9 for a while. Had to go through the school and get certified on it as a partner up. Then that one was getting old, and somebody donated one to me to try out. I didn't like it at first, but then I fell in love with it after a couple of weeks and said, I'll keep it, So I brought that up here with me, from Ashland. The dog that we had, that the other K9 handler had that resigned, that one was sold to Omaha. So we'll have funds in there sitting for many years, probably, hopefully, if my dog continues to stay alive and healthy. And it's still a young dog, so hopefully we get a lot of years out of it before they have to replace that dog if we do someday, if we decide to keep the K9 program. One of the things with the K9 program, what I was told when I was here, I know a lot of the people in the community donated for that, and they were like, raised a lot of money for it and stuff, and Melissa told me ahead of time, she said, hey, just so you know, Bruce said that could be run on donations. I can't guarantee or make that promise that a K9 program can be run off of donations. There's some expenses there that came up that I don't know if maybe they were aware of, such as mileage to and from, transporting the dog, and hospital bills that come up, and food and things like that was all calculated into that promise that Bruce had made previously. But hopefully we'll be able to run the program without continuing with the K9 program at no cost to the city, because like I say, if you guys get tired, if Jerry gets tired of me and decides to replace me, then the dog goes with me. So you'll be replacing both, so I'd like to keep the dog myself. One of the things, Courtney Collins has come on as a full-time officer. Courtney Collins, I think he played football down at Arkansas State. In college, he's a few credits short of a college degree. He came here after working at UNO College. Highly recommended by people that I know personally. Said he's a very good quality person, individual. So I think we'll have good results with Courtney. Brad Carls is in the academy, continuing to be in the academy. He's going to be graduating, right before Christmas time area. So far he's doing good. I think he's finished top of his class in the pistol so far, second in the rifle marksmanship. So he's coming along and doing well in the academy. And then we have bringing on a couple of part-time guys. One of them just to basically fill in for people on vacation and stuff, and we'll probably try and use some part-time guys. Young officer, again, he works with people I know in Omaha, and they say he's a quality person. And the other one, more just to bring him on to, we're gonna keep his, hopefully his firearm certifications active, and he'll help us with training needs. He specializes in training, he's retired Omaha, he has a company now that goes around and he trains, people all around the world, from, South Africa to, South America. He goes all over, and, one of the things that he specializes in the last 10 years of the department, he'd go along and he'd liaison with the school on active shooter type situations and those high stress emergencies. So hopefully I get him in working with the schools and liaison with us and get our officers, so we're kind of get on the same page with everybody. So I hope that goes well. But that's just kind of in the works. I think I just hit Melissa up with that the other day. So you guys are getting the front line thing. If anybody has any questions, feel free to hit me up or ask me about anything. I will be around. There will be probably some grants coming up too, juvenile justice, things coming up that I know Amber Palin, over there at the county attorney's office, she's looking at some stuff, anything that you guys can think of with juvenile justice type of issues, things that, keep juveniles on track and out of trouble. We're certainly open for any ideas in that line of work too. So, thank you.
Thank you. Melissa?
So just a couple things to call to your attention. First of all, I don't know if you have seen the video that NPPD has put, actually it's an advertisement, NPPD put out, I think maybe it's on one of Channel 10, I'm not sure exactly, but Teresa Klein and I were interviewed by NPPD staff about the impact that NPPD has and the partnerships that we have with them. And so I know that's been on TV because I've had a couple of people say, hey, I saw you on TV. If you'd like to see it, I can sure send you to the link to the video so you can watch that. Along those same lines, Teresa Klein and I were invited to participate in a site tour visit. We visited with Ron Tillery, who's the Economic Development Director in Holdridge, and Gary Person, who's the same position in North Platte. They both communities have recently put together an industrial park tract and are working to get some industry into those. So we learned a lot from those two individuals, had some great conversations. And then we also got to participate in a tour of the NPPD's coal plant in Sutherland and their hydro facilities in North Platte. So that was a good informative tour. North Highlands, we are getting ready to do some of the first lot closings, the first sales on that, and I'm working on getting the costs finalized for the special assessments. So because those lots will be closing before the specials have been levied, there will be basically an escrow set aside so that amount can be paid to us when we get the special assessments levied. So we're excited to get that finally up and going. The airport runway is, I believe, it will be open by the end of this week. So that's been everyone who's been out there and seen that said it's a great project and it's really nice. So. And on the consent agenda, you have the applications for the solid waste haulers. We only have the 3 applicants, the same 3 that we have previously approved. And then regarding the vehicle purchase, for the police department, we do have a set-aside fund for the replacement of police vehicles, and that current balance is at $60,000, so there was enough to make this purchase with cash. We had planned on making a purchase this year. It wasn't quite at the level that Joe is talking about. We will also, there's an availability issue, so I think approving that would be a good action for the police department. Other than that, I have some information on health insurance renewal, but I can touch base on that later.
Brian, do you have anything else? No? Okay. So we'll go to consent agenda. Couple items on there that have been mentioned. Any questions?
to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Creachy,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Booth.
Yes.
Thank you. Discussion items not requiring action, update on Kennedy Campus, Destiny Ministries project. I've asked the owner to come and give us an update on what he's been able to do.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to come and share with you tonight. I'm going to begin with a picture for you.
As you can see, these are the entrance doors to East Hall. Those are the original doors.
100 years old, and all the original hardware.
Wow. They're gorgeous.
This is solid oak.
They're gorgeous.
The person did an incredible job on restoring those. And we're excited about that. You go there, you will not see them because they're boarded up.
They look familiar.
They look familiar, huh?
That looks fantastic.
That's just the beginning of what we want
The facility to look like, inside and out. To give you an update, we turned everything in the end of September, and then about 6-7 days later, I found out that there was 3 items that were not quite sufficient, and I'd like to address those issues. One of those was the parking area, and I was hoping to have total report on that. Our desire is that water waste will not be going down the sewer line, and we're trying to design a means to avoid that. And I have a civil engineer that's working on that, and he did not give me a complete report to present for that tonight, but we have that on the agenda. And second item that came up was no structural report for the gym. That report was given last year, according to our structural engineer. And with those corrections made, that facility is structurally sound. Now, the architect presented the final plans. He did not get them until about the 6th of October. And this is what he said. He said, "I have recently received the latest architectural drawings and have seen that the stadium seating is to be removed, a new floor system added at the classroom elevation, a new floor system added at the second level. In addition, exterior egress stairs have been added to the project. I began our structural design of these new areas, and I will have the design complete and the structural drawings provided to you." And he gives the date December the 9th. I have no control of that. He said his schedule is just so tight that that's as soon as, he'll try to get it sooner than that, if possible. And so I'm just letting you know that. We've been working with Travis and Ryan on utilities, and we are getting closer, I think, to getting something together on that. Had a sewer company run the sewer line on the campus yesterday, and we have a couple snags, but the piping looks incredible. The gentleman told me that they've worked in downtown Omaha, and the piping that they were running their camera through was a lot worse shape. And he says, "Yours is excellent." And I thought that's really a plus for us. And so we're excited about that. I don't know if you have any questions you'd like to address me.
It's been a while on East Hall. Do you have a certified certificate signed on that for?
Yeah,
Yes.
they do have that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
so,
didn't remember.
and Pastor's correct, which is to say, basically, we had East Hall renovations to windows and boarding things up and the structural certification and letter. all of that's been complied with. We then had a requirement for a plan set and some additional engineering by September 30th. He produced the plan set. I think there's some modifications based on maybe fire marshal's recommendation for a sprinkler system that need
Yes.
to be done. And then we have to deal with the certification on the drainage and that structural report.
Yes.
Once all those things are done, I think we're to the point where the development agreement, or what was intended through the development agreement, kind of is done. And now we're looking at permitting for that finalized grouped plan set, and then a discussion about what the length of that permitting in terms of the construction cycle would look like, and we'd have that conversation at that point.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
So dates were September 30, we made most of them, it sounds like, except for a couple, so we're still
Yeah.
moving forward.
We've made,
Okay.
by and large, we've made all of them except for what is required by engineers.
Okay.
Engineers, as I understand it, have confirmed they're working on those things. And so as soon as the engineers get their work done, then for the most part, we're where we were.
It's
supposed to
actively
be.
moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Okay.
report. Moving
plowing ahead.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, second item is discussion regarding City of Wahoo health insurance contract.
So I don't have anything in the packet for you, so I'm just hoping that you'll can jot down some notes. We will be having a finance committee meeting later this week to dive into these issues a little bit further. But wanted to let you know that at the next council meeting, we will be having a contract for our health insurance renewal for our City of Wahoo benefit plan for the employees. Inspro put us on notice that we were likely going to have a fairly large increase, and when that premium notice came forward, there's a 43% increase in our premium, which is not something that we can't accommodate that, so there's something that's going to have to change. Inspro also looked at a few other options. United Healthcare was a 37% increase. The LIGHT program, which is the new program through the League of Nebraska Municipalities, was 93% over what we're currently paying. And the last option, which was presented to us, was Medica, which is a new company that's entering into the Nebraska market, and theirs was a 20% increase. So my next steps are working with the Finance Committee. I have a couple of options available through that. We offer city employees either a PPO or an HSA option. The HSA, the city actually contributes to the HSA account for the employee. And based on the 2022 salary survey and benefits survey that we did back in February, the way that the cost is split between the employee and the city is actually very much in line with what our peer communities are doing. So the deductibles are about the same, so I don't know that we're gonna be looking at making changes to deductibles, but changing the plan. There's another option with Medica that offers a much narrower doctor's network that we'll look at that would actually give employees some savings, the city savings as well, but it's very narrow, and I'm not sure that that's the solution that's appropriate for all employees. So I'll dive into that a little bit further with the Finance Committee, but I wanted to give you the heads up. I actually will not be at the next council meeting, and so I'm gonna be leaning on the Finance Committee to make a recommendation to the council on how to proceed, as we need to, because we're making a change, start having employee meetings to get them educated on what those changes are and how it will impact them, so. Any questions?
Just for that number you put out there, that the Nebraska municipality premium increase was 93, is that what you said?
Over what we're currently
Right.
paying. Right, and I question that, and I think it's just a matter of, they're just getting off the ground, and maybe they priced that purposefully because they don't want us in that
Gotcha.
group, yeah, at this point.
Do we know where other municipalities are at, and if they're having similar increases?
I
Can
have
we
not,
find that out?
I could find that out, yeah.
Okay,
I guess I do know that our health insurance is something that our employees use. Innsbruck provided information on utilization rates as compared to the national average, and so our employees are using our health insurance, which, I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
Thank you. Now we'll go to a public hearing. Public hearing regarding application for rezoning of the property described as approximately 3.01 acres on the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 36, township 15, R7E of the 6th PM, Saunders County, Nebraska, better known as 1455 County Road M, from Trans-Ag to transitional ag to LLR, large lot residential as filed by Lloyd Bennett. Before we open up the hearing, Travis, any comments on?
Yeah, so the application for you, like you said, is for a 3.01 acre parcel, 1455 County Road M. It is along Highway 77, east of town here. So basically, the reason why we are at this level here is they wanted to sell the house and buildings away from basically the existing farm ground. I think they have somewhere in the ballpark of about 80 acres there with that. So in doing so, in order to approve a lot split for them to sell that 3 acres, basically, it doesn't meet our ag requirements. So therefore, to go hand in hand, we have to kind of rezone the property in order for me to do the lot split. If the rezone doesn't happen, then the lot split doesn't happen, basically. So they are just selling the property. The Department of Roads are actually purchasing that. They're trying to acquire some property for future expansion of the highway, which is irrelevant, I guess, on this case here, but it meets all the requirements for large lot residential. We've done this in the past with other farmsteads, I guess you might say, as far as splitting that away from the productive ground that would remain ag.
Any questions from Travis? Property owners? Want to speak? I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to speak to this application for rezoning? I'll ask one more time. Anybody want to speak in a public hearing on the application for rezoning this property?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Been a motion second to close the public hearing. Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes,
Creachy.
Yes.
Council, what questions or
Make a motion to approve.
It is an ordinance to provide for the rezoning, so.
Then I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance.
Second.
okay? Is there a desire to have?
Motion to waive the 3
I
readings.
will second that. I just have one question. The right of way has a notch in it. Why would there even be a notch in it? I mean, everybody's approving it, that's fine, but why do you,
what, it's not?
yeah. Why wouldn't it be straight? But that's neither here nor there.
Travis, you may-
No, I wasn't sure what the question was.
Why does the right of way have a little notch in it? Right by the house?
Oh, that, I don't know why I surveyed that one.
It's close enough.
The surveyor had the reason to.
It's probably in this fine print
It could be,
somewhere.
yeah, you're right.
Any other questions? Otherwise, roll call on the waiving the 3 readings.
Warford,
Yes.
Creachy,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes,
Nagel,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Okay, final reading of the ordinance. Roll call.
Nagel,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Booth,
yes,
Rappel,
Yes.
Creachy.
Yes.
Okay. Number 3 is the final plat for subdivision. Oh, excuse me, approval of resolution, 2022-21. Oh, I missed thing.
Yeah.
I had a check mark here for the next one, and I saw it was done. Shoot. Okay, number 2, public hearing regarding a resolution declaring a parcel of land located on the northwest quarter of section 4, township 14, range 7, east of the 6 p.m. as blighted and substandard and in need of development pursuant to the Nebraska Community Development Law. Again, Travis, this was council agenda, or the planning and zoning agenda. Okay,
Go ahead and speak for my side.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Ray with JEO Consulting. So I conducted the study. I handed out a little brief summary of the study. Hopefully you all were able to see the study with quite a bit more, including an appendices that has several photographs documenting what was in there. So real quick, just for everybody's information here in the audience, and particularly anybody watching online, I know that the council, you've been through this, you're a little bit sophisticated and understand how that works. So this is the first step in a process to create an area called blighted and substandard. It's a very ugly name. Ultimately, it just creates an economic development tool that is at your discretion at a later date, so you're not approving any of that now, called tax increment financing to potentially get to that. So I put that in there, so there's a three-step process before you actually get there. This is the first one, creating an area blighted substandard. Then there would be creation of a redevelopment plan, and then ultimately you issuing tax increment financing. There's some pictures that I showed there too. Those are some of the ones from the site. So there are 12 characteristics of blighted under the Nebraska Community Development Law, and 9 of those were found to be prevalent throughout this district. The areas that were found to be there there's a substantial number of deteriorating structures. The street layout was inadequate. In other words, it didn't continue on with your existing street grid that you have. It stopped. There's faulty lot layout in regards to adequate size for lots that are useful, shape. Some of them are landlocked and don't have actual transportation access to a physical street. There was some deterioration of site improvements, storm drain and so forth. There's some flooding, floodplain area that takes place in this area as well. There was some obsolete platting, in other words, it was old and didn't really fit current and modern needs for this area, as well as just getting access to that was a big piece of it. The old structures that are there did contribute to many of those findings. The average age of the structures was about over 100 years of age, and according to the statute, it needs to be greater than 40 years of age to be considered into that obsolescence age. So there were 9 of those 12 factors that were found to be present, including the one of those that has to be found, which was the substantial age of being greater than 40 years of age. And then of the substandard factors, there was a dilapidation and deterioration of site improvements and of structures. The age and obsolescence of those structures that are no longer of a useful cause in today's society. Inadequate provisions for ventilation, light, and air. Sanitation was found to be somewhat present there, more so on the sanitation side in dealing with some of the debris piles that were noted that were around there, and then the floodplain pieces that could potentially be in there. That last one, the combination of factors that are conducive to ill health, transmission of disease, and infant mortality was really not noted anywhere on that site and in the study. So 3 of the 4 characteristics were found. There is no threshold as far as how many have to be found or not be found to be declared blighted substandard. Is there a preponderance of evidence to be determined under the community development law as to whether or not this is present to declare this area blighted and substandard. The area that was studied, as you can see, is generally southeast of Highway 77 and West 15th Street there. includes, two major property owners, one being JEO, the other one being the city. And I was questioned, at the planning commission, why was some of the city property included in this? Cause you don't pay, taxes, obviously, so there's no tax increment financing creation there. But the issue is that is the portion that connects this to the city that needs additional infrastructure extension to make sure that this potential property could ultimately be developed. So that was why that area was included, because it is in need of some additional improvements, regardless of whether it was in public or private ownership. So that was one component that was necessarily looked at. And then the overall characteristics that of blight substandard that were found to be dispersed throughout that area were found to be on all those parcels, and not just one, and that all of them were then included into that study. So that's kind of a real quick summary of what was found in the blighted substandard determination. So it's my professional recommendation as a planner that you would declare this area blighted substandard. We presented it to the planning commission at a public hearing. They concurred and gave a unanimous approval as well.
So just also for your knowledge and the public's knowledge, a notice was published in the newspaper as required twice prior to this hearing. We've provided the information on the city's website as required by statute, and we've also sent out by certified mail notice of the public hearing to all of the taxing entities that would be impacted by this, potentially by a potential TIF project. So they've all, that went out certified mail, and those were all received. So it's in compliance with all of the requirements of law.
And I believe you also sent it out to a third-party legal review to just verify that it all met those requirements of the Nebraska state statute.
I'm sorry, I wanted to catch that again. Yeah, it was reviewed by third party as well.
By,
Outside of JEO and the city.
by Klein Williams, attorney, yes.
Thank you.
And that was a relationship that we had prior to this. There's an attorney that has worked with us on other TIF projects, so.
Well, and the determination of blight and substandard is relatively straightforward. It's one or the other. It fits or it doesn't fit, and it seems like this has checked the box, it's fitting quite admirably. Are we still in public hearing?
Pardon? Yeah, well, open up public hearing. Any of the public want to speak to this application or this report, put it that way, voting on the report, whether it qualifies. Any comments in the public hearing? Seeing none,
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
okay. Roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Grapple,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Luke.
Yes.
Okay, A is the approval of resolution 2022-21 provide for designation as blighted and substandard.
That resolution was on your, at your spot, and it basically laid out the dates and the requirements that we met.
I make a motion to approve. I look forward to seeing an improvement done to these properties.
I second it.
Not a second and a third. Any other questions, council?
One of the things that also sometimes is controversial is when you talk about designating an area that is residentially zoned or residentially used as blighted and substandard, because that may have a negative impact to the school system, and as a result of increasing the burden on the school system without having offsetted taxing authority, that sort of thing, and none of that applies here because we're not dealing with any residentially zoned properties.
This is
So,
all commercial or.
yeah.
And does the TIF stuff apply here?
So if there were a TIF project to be part of this, it would be a completely new process. An application would be filed, we'd have to notify all of the taxing entities, the planning commission, and there would be a public hearing before you as well, so.
Goes before another committee.
This just makes TIF possible.
Any other questions?
Does it harm the property owners in any way? That's something I guess I've never known. Does it
No.
change the?
No.
I think you said that the property owners are involved in it, so.
Any other questions? It's fine.
Yes.
Wahoo,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Number three, approval of final plat for subdivision known as Wilmer Ridge Addition, a 38.98 acre parcel of land, more or less located on the north half of the southwest quarter of the south half of the northwest quarter. All of section 34, township 15, range 7, east of the 6 PM. Saunders County, Nebraska, is filed by JEO Investments. You want to speak to that?
So in your packet, you have the final plat as presented for Wilmer Ridge subdivision. I know at the planning commission, when they reviewed this, there was some question as well from you on the preliminary plat about a second access point off of Chestnut Street. I do have on the agenda the subdivision agreement and the reimbursement resolution or construction financing. And I am gonna be asking for you to table that to the next meeting. We have been having quite a few conversations, and we have both of those documents in a draft format. I think we have everything worked out. But as far as the second access point, there is, in our subdivision agreement that we have drafted, JEO Investments has committed to providing a second access point, at which point that property, which Stuart is, that's shown in the blue there, would move forward, or the property to the north of that, which I think is commonly known as the church property. So they have made a commitment to providing a second access. That's come about as a result of several conversations. When Chestnut Street was laid out, the council did have an intent of trying to limit the number of access points. And one of those access points that was frequently discussed was the north boundary line of the church's property where there's a tree line. And so, again, they have committed to working with the city to make a determination at which point they want to either move forward with their property that's not currently in their final plat, or at which point the developer to the north or the property owner to the north would want to move forward to make a second access point that would address the safety, any other access points that are on Chestnut Street at that time. And I think from a development point, is for the long-term benefit of the city, I think that makes the most sense versus providing something other than that. On 23rd Street, which is the only subdivision access, they have committed also to widening out that area to the north of 23rd Street, so that if there was an accident or something that would limit access, there's the terrain would allow for emergency vehicles to jump the curb and go around it. We've had conversations about that internally with our EMS and fire staff, and they're okay with that as well. So, as far as the infrastructure improvements go, if you recall, with the North Highlands subdivision, we entered into a reimbursement resolution that provided a bit of a financial incentive for the developer to move forward with reasonably priced lots at maintaining a velocity of sales. We have something very similar to that. It's not quite the reimbursement. It's a transfer of property in lieu of, I'm trying to think how the best way to say this. Lots 34 and 55, which are on the south side of 23rd Street between Broadway and Linden, would be dedicated to the city as a park space. And we would work with them and provide them a credit on the assessments that would be levied against those two lots as the other lots were paid off, which would essentially eliminate the assessments on those lots, if that makes sense. And it It acknowledges that this development is of benefit to the city, that the park space is needed and helps them meet their requirement for the park space, and it's very similar to the model that we used with North Highlands. The infrastructure, as far as the streets go, they are asking for a waiver of the width on Broadway Street, 19th Street, Linden Street, 23rd Street and Broadway Street north of 23rd would remain the full 31 foot width that we have in our subdivision regulations. So the subdivision agreement would include a waiver of those width requirements that would have a limitation to parking only allowed on one side of the street. As with North Highlands, there is a commitment of the city to pay for the oversizing on the street from the 25 to 28 or 25 to 31, depending on which street there is, as well as paying for intersections. And that is exactly the same that we did with North Highlands. And if you recall, we had an economic impact study done on a 60-lot subdivision and how that would help the city in terms of property tax, sales tax, and it is again something that makes sense for helping this development move forward. Do you have a question, Carl?
Yeah, but
Okay.
for later.
Okay. Sanitary, water, and storm sewer would all be assessed directly to the lots. They've worked with Ryan on the gas and electric, and the Board of Public Works just approved the new connection fees that would be, development fees that would be included as part of this. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to address. I know that the developers are here if you have any further specific questions.
What did you say specifically that you were saying that we would want to table?
So you do not have in your packet the subdivision agreement or the reimbursement financing resolution. That's because those are not in final format, and so I would like you to table. Right, but I think you probably also want to table the approval of the final plat, just to ensure that we get, if there are any issues, we get those addressed. And I have talked with the developers and I've been told that's okay, maybe not preferred, but okay.
Well, because to me, even if you approve the final plat, it would be contingent on A and B being worked out, so it would delay the effective date no matter what. So to me, you ought to table everything. Now,
You can have the
certainly take
public hearing.
comments and
Right.
everything
Still have
else,
the public
yes.
hearing, no?
Melissa, we did speak about a traffic study at that intersection. Due
Yes.
to the increased traffic, did we ever get a traffic study?
We did get a traffic study, and that, there's a copy right there, Ryan, right? Ryan has a copy. And you're more than welcome to take that and review it. They looked not only at the impact of this subdivision, but also a full build-out of this subdivision, but full build-out of the North Highland subdivision, and an increase in the school's student population by 1.5% every year over the next 5 years, because their recommendation at the end was still that the two-way stopping traffic on 23rd Street for east and westbound traffic is the best solution for that intersection with those traffic levels.
Was the summary, did it give any time frame, like this was good at the current build rate for the next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years?
So
When should it be addressed again?
What they looked at was assuming in 2027, I believe, is or 29, a full build out of both subdivisions and the population increase in the student population at the school. So they looked at, they did that projection of what the population would be, the traffic counts based off of current traffic counts, and projected for, I don't know, Ryan, do you see the number 2029, I believe? Maybe you don't. I know it was like 5 years.
Okay. That's kind of what I was wondering, if there was somewhat of a time frame, so it probably should be readdressed then and about that point, so.
I know at the planning commission, there was a question about, in the report, they indicate that they counted one day. So of traffic, and I questioned that as well. FHU is the company that has done all of our other traffic studies. We use them when we are looking at Fifth and Chestnut, 15th and Chestnut, First and Chestnut. And that, they said that is actually an industry standard of picking a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is, you don't have any added event, or that's pretty typical of the traffic that you're gonna see. We know school was in session at the time that this was done, so I would expect that one day is very typical of what the traffic is that goes through that intersection.
Okay. You want that a public hearing?
We still have.
Yeah, we didn't have it here, sorry. Okay, we'll open it up to public. Any comments on this going to the, basically approval of the final, but, yeah.
Good evening. Troy Johnston, here representing the developers. I'll keep this pretty short and sweet. I think Melissa did a good job of kind of recapping things. I guess I see everybody's got that picture there in front of them.
This one?
Yes.
Yep, the blue.
Just very quickly, kind of the changes that happened from the preliminary plat till now, what you see there is the final plat. I think the major thing there is on the right-hand side of the page, that blue shaded area. We've shortened up, and we are not platting our entire property. We've shortened that up, left it about 300 feet short. We feel that gives us better flexibility in the future, as well as addressing the concerns with that futuristic second access point. The other thing you'll see there is that pink or reddish shaded area that makes kind of an L shaped in the street system. Again, if you recall back, that was a cul-de-sac that just ran east and west. After kind of giving it some more thought, taking in the feedback from comments that were made, we felt it best to get a little more circulation in there, so it stops a lot more of the kind of the point impact, the dead end type of things if emergencies were to happen. So we did revise that as well. So again, those were the major changes from preliminary to final. With that, I'll sit and or answer any questions.
I'll see if there's any comments from the public, and then
Yep.
you can come back if there need any questions. Any input from the public? Public hearing. Seeing none. Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second it.
The motion second to close the public hearing. Roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move to section C, the approval of final plat for discussion by the council. Any questions of the developer or Melissa or Gilda?
I'm glad it's moving forward, but I guess we're being asked to table.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like we should just table the entire thing at this point until we have the rest of the information, so,
I'll second that.
yeah.
Motion table.
Okay,
I do have a question. Are there any concerns with, that you feel should need to be addressed that I haven't discussed?
I think everybody's done a very good job of addressing concerns.
The concerns I had have been answered.
Yeah, my biggest thing was making sure that that intersection is gonna be able to handle that amount of traffic. I guess I'm not sure, you know, if they were studying whether or not that should be stop signs or where, that's all well and good. I'm more still concerned about another way out, but if they're working something out, and I see the two lots that they said that they would leave blank until they work that out, I think I'm content with that, so it works for me.
maybe the next time for a traffic study would be when the northwest corner of 23rd and Chestnut moves forward with development. See what that does to traffic, and if we're seeing concerns already, that would probably be the next time. for that.
Did that include phase 2 of North Islands?
Yes, yep.
I want to make sure that was also part of it.
Because if that wasn't, that's another like 40 houses.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion, roll call.
Morpeth,
Yes.
Creachy,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Luke.
Yes.
No older table business. Action items not requiring a public hearing. Number one, approval of third reading of the ordinance 2398, conditional use permit for ground level apartments in C1 downtown commercial district. We have some-
I know at the last, council meeting, there was some concerns about there only being a residential facility investment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's where I was gonna start. That was my biggest concern. I know that that was what you had brought up last meeting, talking about, you know, well, what happens if that doesn't occur, and that was been my concern. And trying to come up with some language, or what can we do in that conditional use permit to ensure that the east side, or the north side of that entire lot doesn't become parking as well, and then we lose that commercial space, which I know is kind of a point to protect that while we're willing to give up the park facing park. I would love to see that Fifth Street section protected one way or another.
I agree with you to a degree. We're being asked to make a conditional use out of something we haven't seen yet. So, it would be, I guess, is it, I'll ask Jovan if this is a good time to table.
Yeah, you certainly could. I think that, to me, there's two options that are on the table. Melissa, I know, had been working on one option, which is potentially reading some language into the conditional use permit, which ties requirements to residential structures only in the event that there are corresponding commercial structures also built at the same time. Another option would be to table it and have the developer resubmit a different plan set showing exactly what the project looks like, and affixing that plan set as an exhibit to the conditional use permit, so you're approving the use of residential dwellings on the first floor only as it relates to that particular plan. Really, it's up to you as a council, which you think is appropriate. I don't know, from the developer's perspective, what would be necessary to put together that revised plan set, and what that timeline looks like. But I think either are viable options.
Mike? I was just gonna say, he's here. Mike, is
Yeah,
it
Mike.
out of sorts?
But
for
you
us to
certainly
ask him
can
a
ask.
few questions, because frankly, you know, I wanna see the project go through, right? We all wanna see it, go through, and so some of this is, I don't wanna pass, you know, do something that's going to get in the way, or that's going to completely stop stuff. I also don't wanna say, well, we got it all passed for you, and then you say, well, this isn't what works for me. So, I mean, let's start with, is there any intention, or has there been any thought to that north building or not going up? Is there, because that's really what we're leaning on, and I'd be happy to just jump in here and we could get it done today without having to have a final plat. If we can just say, yeah, I'm okay with adding language that says there needs to be those commercial bays in that north building, or so much of that space needs to be designated as commercial. Because you understand what we're trying to protect, right? You get where we're coming from.
No, I understand what you're trying to protect, but I also want to remind you what it is now. It's currently a vacant building of 15,000 square foot that's been vacant for 4 years. It's a metal tin building that has no business going on. It's a free parking lot that the public uses, and I'm trying to come to town to make an improvement. My improvement has been focused on multifamily apartments. That's what I started day one a year ago to try to do, and I've been working with the city to come up with a strategic plan to build the best project I can on this property. I'm going to continue to do that, and that's my long answer. What is the program that you require on Fifth Street versus what I'm allowed to do is a long discussion, in my opinion. I think my solutions that I brought to the table have been well thought out by building more parking on Beach and on 4th Street. But I think, those solutions have been brought up, but also shot down. So if you want to talk about new design or redesign, I'm open to those discussions, for sure. Because I want to see this project go through. And a project will go through. But I don't think this is the proper platform to kind of go through the nuts and bolts, the percentages, the square footages, et cetera. So.
That being said, then I would be in line with what you said, our best option then, because I don't wanna put something in here that gets in the way. I also don't want to not have that space protected again. I think the worst thing I could see is that continuing to be a parking lot while we put a big apartment building on the other end of it. So to me, I would still be with you and say, let's table that until we can see a final plat and approve a final plat as part of the conditional
Final
use.
plan?
Or final plan, I'm sorry.
What does tabling do? I mean, we discussed this last time.
Just stops it. It sits until you provide
Yeah.
the final design.
Yeah, I understand it sits, but, what action can I take, like, on top of what I've already taken to move this project forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't wanna speak for the council, but what I hear Stuart indicating is, you presented a version of a project which included obviously more structures and were more units than would be allowed based on the parking plan on site, right? So everybody obviously, and you understand that project's gonna have to be scaled down to some degree. What I hear the council's concerned about is, well, if they approve the conditional use permit without tying it to a particular project, hypothetically, that would allow someone, you or otherwise, to tear down the structure, put an apartment complex on the south side and not touch the north side. And what they're saying is the only reason they would allow for first floor dwellings on the north side, the south side, is if there's going to be some commercial units on the north side. And so what I would assume you guys are wanting as a council is, hey, change your design renderings that you had before that show now what does it look like based on the on-premise parking requirements and what you can fit. That'll show presumably some commercial units on the north side. That would then be affixed as an exhibit to the conditional use permit, and you get your permit. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he said it.
He mopped it up pretty good.
He did, yeah.
Joe, he wouldn't need to produce final design.
No.
But concept drawing.
A concept would be great.
Something that's going to fit, that we could say, all right, yes, we would allow the conditional use for the permit, facing,
The park.
facing the park, provided, this commercial space on Fifth Street is added with it. Because I think that's been our biggest concern.
And there's enough
Or
parking
it's
for it.
protected.
Has there been precedents before that you've done this?
No, because there would be no
This is the first
precedence
time we've
because
allowed-
This is
this
the first time.
particular zoning amendment was done for the benefit of this project, right? And so this is all virgin territory to that extent.
Well, I think though typically what they're asking for, usually when there's a conditional use application, we have that knowledge of what the plan is. So I guess it wouldn't be really any different in this situation. Here's what's being proposed.
You're right. I mean, as an example, the Wahoo Locker project that we were talking about for several council members, you had a plan set that was presented to you along with the conditional use permit application as part of that process. And so it would be similar to that. So it's not unusual from that perspective.
But I think Carl is saying he wants to make sure there's enough parking.
No,
No,
No?
that's a requirement regardless. The concern was
the
If-
building on Fifth Street
if
doesn't
the
happen.
building, we take the two buildings and we say, well, he wants to put more parking in and just leaves the one side parking and builds the other apartment complex. I just don't wanna see that one strip of Fifth Street when we've given up the other parts of that block and said, okay, that can be ground floor apartments, because that's what we're doing essentially, right? We're saying ground floor apartments are allowed in C1, so we're giving up commercial space, and as we give up 2 streets of commercial space already based by design, I don't wanna see the rest of that remain parking and give up, because all of a sudden, then what is left of that commercial space on Fifth Street that we're trying to protect becomes a parking lot,
Oh.
or remains a parking lot.
Well, I think
The
when
point
we-
is, when we're giving up the other space, it's because I wanted to see the development onto Fifth Street as well. If we can't have development on Fifth Street, I just don't wanna see the whole thing remain a big apartment complex and we lose Fifth Street as well, because then we're giving up the whole block instead of just the one or two streets that we were
Sure,
expecting to give
yeah.
up.
Well,
And
when
see-
we considered the request to add the conditional use permit, it was with the intent that we would keep commercial frontage on.
Right,
Fifth
and,
Street.
and I fully believe that that continues to be his intent, right?
Right.
I just, again, our concern when you brought it up says, nothing says it has to be that, it is a parking lot now, as you pointed out. So we're not necessarily losing anything, except again, our thought was, even the planning commission, the thought the whole time was protect as much commercial space as we can downtown. And if by granting this project, residential space on two other streets, and then this space just becomes parking lot, then we didn't protect our commercial space at all. We just left it a parking lot and gave up the rest of our commercial space, and I just don't wanna see that happen, at least that's my point of view.
Right.
I see that.
I'm trying to protect some of it, you know, if we're giving some up, I wanna protect some of it.
For sure.
So if
If
it's
that makes
tabled,
sense.
the time frame then becomes on the applicant to maybe give us a drawing or your perception of what can be done. So there really would not be a timeframe for the item to be tabled, other than, it would not be on us.
Yeah.
Once we receive it.
Procedurally, you would table it, it would stay on the table, i.e. be on the agenda for the next meeting. And then it would require a motion, a second to take it off the table
Right.
if you're
It would
ready to
stay
act.
there until-
If not, it stays on it for the next meeting.
And all we're looking for is a plan that fits, because the problem is the last plan that we saw doesn't fit because of parking. Otherwise, the last plan we saw, I mean, at least I love to do it, doesn't fit for parking. And, so, yeah, as long as we can get something that fits for parking, that's all I would like to see in order.
That fits the commercial space that you want and
Mhm.
the parking.
That doesn't, yeah, that
associated
doesn't
with
give
it.
up that commercial space.
Leaning toward a table,
I would make that motion, yes.
table.
I was gonna say, I mean, I think the discussion needs to get to a certain point where the policy is directly affecting the design of what I'm going to propose as the next round of design. So, I mean, if you would like commercial along all of Fifth Street, I mean, there's an easement there between the bank, and our property. So, you know, that is not buildable space, but.
We know that.
Okay.
It's a bank's drive-through.
My assumption, again, speaking only for myself, but my assumption is what you had previously proposed for commercial units would be satisfactory to the city council. It's just, you're gonna have to, obviously, to meet the parking requirements, lop off residential units somewhere on your project. And so, if you show a proposal which includes your original proposal with respect to the commercial and your reduced,
Building heights.
building on the residential side, then that's a very basic plan that's proposed and then affixed to the conditional use permit. Right, so to be blunt, you're lopping off, I would assume, one or two floors off of what your prior proposal was.
You're getting your bedrooms to match the interior parking.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Is
don't
that
know anything about
economically
design, I just don't know.
feasible for the builder? Is that economically feasible for him? That's
They'll
not
have to
our
make it
issue.
work.
That's not our
It's either-
issue.
either we
It's not our
table it or
issue,
we
don't
deny
know
it,
that.
then.
I'm not a developer, I just, again, my biggest concern was started thinking, when you said it last time, that rang really true, that, okay, now what if suddenly we build on the other streets because we gave conditional use to do that, and this remains parking lot, and we gave up a city block of what would be commercial
Commercial.
space that's no longer commercial.
Right, I get that.
So basically, he knows residential location, numbers, parking, and now the commercial on Fifth.
Well, we've done the
It doesn't
zoning change
necessarily say
already.
he has to develop the commercial property, I guess that, Melissa had written some sample language that I kinda liked as well. I don't wanna tell you what you have to do in your design, but it was, some of that language basically just said, at least 90 feet of this needs to be saved back and can't be turned into parking to save for commercial or whatever at a later date. That's saying you don't necessarily have to build it, but I just don't wanna see that area disappear and not be buildable. Maybe maybe
Well,
it's.
but not to argue, we
Change
sat
or
here
something.
3 months ago with a zoning change, and that's exactly what we were saying, is
Well,
that
yeah.
commercial had to stay on Fifth Street.
Right.
So that pretty much has all been laid out. And I guess if there's a project that fits within that zoning, and if it fits within those parking requirements, does he even need a commercial or a conditional use?
Well, yeah,
He
because
fits,
it would
if
fit
he
the
fits,
first
but
floor
to get the
apartments.
first floor, it's still a
First
conditional
floor
use.
apartments.
We've
regardless.
already allowed that in, yeah,
But it's,
so if he
it's
has to
allowed as
apply.
a conditional use,
Yeah,
and so
that's
he
where
has
we're
to
at
still
right
get the
now.
conditional use.
Okay.
So you can't just build it without us, give him the conditional use.
Well, out of fairness to the developer, let me pose this question. Would you be okay with a phased building plan? So a building plan that says he could hypothetically build the residentially zoned areas, what we're talking about right now, and then hold back with no parking on those areas, the commercial portion of it, and build that later? Or do you feel that the commercial units have to be built at the same time the residential?
I'd be a pretty upset resident if I had a construction project right next to my apartment building.
Well, that's always gonna happen one way or another.
Well, but right next to it though, 20 foot.
Absolutely not. But from my point of view, no, right now it's a parking lot and starting something there is better than nothing. I just wanna protect the area so that it can, at some point someday, that's still commercial property. Or can be built as commercial along that Fifth Street.
Probably make sure the plan is in place, but wouldn't have to build at the same time. Good work.
Well, the question being, to me, you have three options. One, it's required to be built at the same time. Two, it's required to be built in phases, i.e. once you commit to the first phase, you are contractually committed to do the second
Right.
phase within a certain time frame. Or the third option would be, you can build it based on whatever time frame you want. It's just your parking numbers and your occupancy of that space is prohibited, basically. And it has to be set aside for some future commercial project at any point in time, whether he does it or otherwise. It may never be done in that option. And I'm not saying one is appropriate over the other, but I think all three are options for it.
Would it be possible to require the commercial building on Fifth Street first
You
And
have
then,
certainly the right.
in order to keep it commercial?
I feel like that's really stretching him, that's stretching the developer and kinda hamstringing. I wanna make sure it can be done. At least that's my point of view, again.
But I can't
Just
see
me.
letting it sit there and then, have it walled off so you can't park there until he's ready to build that. If he
Fair
builds
enough,
the
but-
apartment portion first.
That's why you just have them built at the same time. If you're gonna do it, they have to be,
I don't wanna get that into it, right? At least that's my, I don't want to.
We're micromanaging.
that's why they
Yeah,
just
just
ground
wanna-
floor apartments.
we're giving away commercial space, we're not giving it away. It's not
We're
ours to give
allowing,
away.
we're allowing it
Right,
not to be
it's what is
developed.
zoned for commercial area, and I
Could
know there was a
potentially not be
lot of
developed.
discussions between planning and us and everything about whether or not that's even the right thing to do, so I just don't wanna see more. We thought, well, it's okay to give that up because we're protecting Fifth Street. Well, as soon as it, if it's remaining parking lot, we're not protecting Fifth Street.
Cause it's all one big
Right.
lot. If it's a separate lot, then it's a different story, but it's all one lot.
So is there a motion? Is there a motion? I don't have a
Motion's to table.
second. I don't.
I did.
for
And
table.
Carl did.
Carl did, okay. Motion to table. Roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes,
Raffle.
Yes. Okay. Number two, approval of annual occupation tax report.
So this is, this was something new that the legislature put in place a couple years ago. This is all the occupation taxes that we collect. This, is for fiscal year October 1, 21 through September 30th of 22. It has been posted on the city's website as is required, so it's really more for your information and for your acceptance. It's this.
Okay. that's-
Yeah, all the little numbers. So we need to accept, I approve, or I make a motion to accept. And this money is already in our budget and we're spending it.
Got a motion and a second to approve the annual report. Any discussion? Roll call?
Creachy?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Warford?
Yes.
Goop?
Yes,
Ideas?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Number 3, approval renewal of conditional use permit for Chips Beer Garden and Sandlot Volleyball Court at 1499 North Chestnut Street.
So this is a conditional use permit that you have previously approved that expired, and then the transition between Lucinda and Cody and Christina, we're trying to get, we have a number of these that we're bringing, that Christina is bringing to you for consideration. So this is, the only question that there is, when the original was approved, there was a parking requirement to be met. They do not have a written agreement, but I do know that on rare occasion, overflow has been put in those lots.
And that's the business across the street,
Yes.
the daycare across the street.
And the conditional use permit
That's where I
was
always end up
for
parking.
what? Yeah. It was for what? What was the conditional use for? Sand volleyball?
Sand volleyball.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we haven't had any issues with, police being to be called. Are we doing this for,
he says no.
Any issues?
do we continue to do this for a year at a time, or is it, do we expand it?
I believe right now it's at 2 years.
2 years? I think that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Guess I would make a motion to approve the renewal of conditional use
I'll second.
for the 2 years.
Second, you got it? Roll call?
So it's, yeah, it's an ordinance.
Motion to introduce
Oh,
the ordinance.
Second.
Okay.
Motion waive.
Second.
roll call. Getting the roll.
Okay. Creachy?
Yes.
Sorry, who seconded? I might have it up, I didn't.
Ideas?
Okay, Creachy, Ideas?
Yes.
Goop?
Yes,
Nagel?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Warford?
Yes.
Do we gotta do the three, waive the three
That was to
readings?
waive the 3
Yeah,
readings.
no,
Oh, that was to
vote.
waive.
That's
Okay.
fine.
So now it's the real one.
Now it's,
Now
we gotta do it
approval
again.
of the ordinance.
Alright.
Creachy?
Yes.
Goop?
yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Warford?
Yes.
Okay, approval of renewal of conditional use for Joel Lynchton doing business as Clear Advantage Glass, Auto Glass, Limited Glass of Wahoo, and provide auto glass repair and installation at 430 East Fifth Street, Unit 5.
So what's his conditional use? I mean, it's a business in zone not in the right place,
The type of use.
type of use?
The type of use is conditional?
And so similarly, this is one where generally you would have some sort of renewal period, whether it's 1 or multiple years is certainly up to you, but you don't wanna make it permanent, because then we get into questions about one operator's use of it might be different than another operator's use of it. And
Okay.
is that new operator disruptive in their form?
So it's like it's 24 months in here.
So this is
There,
the
motion to
ordinance.
introduce the ordinance for approval.
Second. Motion waive the 3 readings.
Second. Yeah, so whatever.
Roll call on the 3 readings.
Who's waiving again?
Carl.
Okay.
I second
pressure
that.
on
Yeah.
Christina.
I made the motion to waive.
Motion.
Try to keep up, Christine.
I'm thinking.
It's all being recorded, you watch it later.
Pick a
When you talk
name.
at the same time and writing it down.
Yeah, they're getting ahead of us.
should have it already like filled out.
Okay, so we're
second,
now where we at?
So for the waiver.
Now you're voting on the waiver.
Roll call.
Warford?
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes.
Goop?
Yes,
Nagel?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Okay, final, approval on the ordinance. Roll call.
Creachy?
Yes.
Warford?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Goop?
yes.
Number 5, approval of additional 9-month grant extension for the owner-occupied housing rehab program as requested by SEM. Delays in.
Couldn't give all the money away yet?
Yeah, like contractors.
Contractors.
Yeah.
Is 9 months gonna be enough?
Well, that being said,
Yes.
I would make the motion to approve that.
Second.
This is just a
contractors don't wanna do it for what they
Well,
can't ask them to
Can't find
do
it.
it.
Can't
With everybody else's work.
Oh,
Okay, roll call and approval of the extension.
Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Booth,
yes,
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Number 6, approval of agreement for sale of 29 units to the Omaha Police Department and Chief has outlined the plan.
And this is just a simple resolution because we are transferring ownership to another political subdivision, so we're allowed to do it in a condensed way. Whereas if we were selling it to the public or private party, we would have to handle this a little differently.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Motion is second to approve the agreement. Questions? Roll call.
Rappel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Booth,
yes,
Krejci,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Number 7, approval of waiver request for colors and allowed fence in front, front yard setback for total field lease of Omaha Steel as ag zone parcel.
Yeah, and this one we're doing just out of an abundance of caution, really. I think it falls into a gray area where arguably we don't need a waiver in order to do this, but I think just to be transparent, we want to be clear that arguably there are some requirements with respect to the fencing that are not being adhered to, and we are waiving those requirements. This project is a semi-public project. The solar project has a city user, meaning the utility department's gonna be the ultimate user of the source of the power. The library foundation also is the fee simple title holder to the property. So, it's quasi-public in nature, which is usually when we open the door for waivers like this, is when they're for the benefit of the public, not a particular private individual.
Travis?
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had any questions there. Their illustration there, basically where this came about, being as it is ag zoned, our setback requirement is 50 feet. They are adhering to that with the apparatus as far as the solar panels themselves. Where it became the issue is just like Joe had said, as far as the fencing requirement. Our fencing requirements as far as when it relates to ag and even industrial is not real clear as far as front yard setback. It directly relates or states, residential shall be max height of 4 feet, shall be considered an open type fence, which chain link meets that. But in this case here, because of the nature of what the use is, with the security fence, it's basically just like Omaha Steel. It's gonna be the 6 foot high, which is allowed. We'll have the 3 security barbs on top. It was just kind of a clarification and covering all the bases as far as allowing that fence to encroach in that setback area, you might say. They did illustrate that for me as far as what that distance looks like. And actually from the property line, they are still 34 feet from the actual property line to the fence. And they have their driveway shown on there as far as area. There will be gates on that. There won't be semis or anything else going into that for service or any of those items. So I don't feel that it's a safety concern or a site triangle concern, utility issues, anything like that. So basically it's just more of a clarification, get it on paper of why, so when we have future instances that might happen or occur in the same case, we can treat those the same and have those same reasons of why it was approved or denied. And just clarification more than anything.
It's still a 6 foot tall fence with the 3 wires across the top.
Yep, so it'll be that same type of fence as what Omaha Steel has got. Now, if you see their fence is inset, they adhered to that 50 feet.
Okay.
But once again, they've got a double gate more for deliveries to get those semis in there on that property before, so they wouldn't be sticking in the right of way or whatnot. So, yeah, same type of fence and everything. They are staying out of the floodway, if you see that bottom area, so we don't have to worry about no rise, any of that stuff. Pretty much just that front yard setback is the only approval that I need, basically, to be able to permit this thing to move forward.
So the floodway is that black line that goes through there or not? Cause that looks like it's on the same plane.
So, yeah, that basically, they'll be right up to that. So, yeah, the fence line will follow that floodplain line. The floodway is on the other side, so it's not actually in the floodway. I had to get clarification because I wasn't sure what the darker dotted line was. If you see up here, they've got, the south edge of road L noted. They've got property line for right-of-way noted. The darker dash line is actually the proposed lease area. I question why that did fall in the right-of-way line. For some reason it doesn't, but, so they are actually following, that, or actually we'll have a little side yard setback, from that.
As long as we're not putting a fence in the floodway then.
Yeah, cause if the fence is in the floodway, then I would have to actually have a no-rise certificate for that. I wouldn't be able to permit that without an engineered stamp.
So our waiver today is just for the,
Pretty much for, I guess you would call because they're encroaching in on the 50-foot, right-of-way requirement for ag. But like I said, for fencing, it doesn't say specifically that a 6-foot fence cannot be installed in an ag zone. It does say specifically for residential, but I wanted to kind of treat them the same and, just cover all of our bases like Jobin had said.
guess I make a motion to approve that clarification of waiver.
Second.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you,
Roll call.
Travis.
Creachy,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Booth,
Yes.
Warford.
Okay, I don't have any comments. Is the date set for the finance committee? Is that approved? I didn't know if that was fine. I don't have any other comments. Council members? Any comments?
Where are we meeting next November 8th? Are we meeting here?
Yeah, this isn't the polling.
Okay. They moved it to the shed.
We moved it to where?
The bed shed.
Nothing else? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Is that where we're supposed to, that's what I did last time.
All in favor, stand.
Yes, you're right. I kind of forgot about that.
Hey,
Which makes no sense because it's out of our ward completely.